We have done many studies, how long an engagement it should be, what questions to ask. People immediately ask, do you have any felony backgrounds? That's the worst question you can ask. One of the biggest challenges that employers face today is people don't show up to interviews.
So let's get into the Zippy app a little bit more, because I think it's a very innovative approach. I was guilty. I'm guilty of running a spreadsheet to manage employees, like onboarding. Who have I interviewed? Who have I lined up? Yada yada yada. But I think you guys are taking it a step beyond that. You're getting rid of these spreadsheets. You're getting rid of the email communication, strictly on a phone call during business hours. All of that. So when I saw the product first, I was pretty impressed of the flow and the structure that's in place for that. So run us through, and obviously you've got to, I don't want to spend too much time on it. We're almost up for time, but I do want to cover that because I think it's an innovative approach. So instead of the restaurant, I think advertising it themselves, you guys take care of that. So can you give us a breakdown, like from posting the jobs, because you guys do that, to I think you also do text message communication with the employees. They can schedule their own, they can do assessments. Run us through the whole thing and tell us how much more efficient it can be versus a spreadsheet, email, phone call communication.
Sure.
And
If you
especially for a
actually,
busy manager, sorry. So
yes, yeah, exactly.
obviously
No,
that
no, no,
manager is doing 10,000 things, and now they
yes.
also have to interview and they also have to call the employees. So this is going to take a huge amount of time out of their schedule, free them up to do other things. So run us through that, because I'm really
Yeah.
impressed with that operation.
It starts with actually getting visibility for the jobs. Okay, it is number one thing that our ZippyApp does is get you visibility for the jobs, because job postings, these are what we call evergreen jobs. Evergreen jobs are jobs that are always posted. Okay, there isn't a single restaurant today that doesn't have, front of the house or back of the house openings, under various names, various titles. So it is really important for these evergreen jobs to perform well on search engines. Okay, so visibility is an extremely important thing. And that's a piece of technology that we have developed that puts your jobs out there. You don't need to go out there and post your jobs individually here and there. We manage all of that for you, and we make sure your jobs appear under a lot of search conditions. Okay, so we get your jobs visibility. And that is a huge differentiator where when your jobs are actually found. Okay, and then you want to make it easy for people to apply. So we remove every friction possible in the application process. And then, once somebody applies, now your work supposedly begins. But if we deliver a large number of applications, then we need a very comprehensive way of handling this, because this cannot be handled manually, that somebody will sit there and go through each application one by one. So there is a lot of automation, and we call this a recruitment marketing platform, because recruitment is really like a marketing function. As we develop the culture and all of that, we need to nurture applicants in the recruitment process as well. And the system is such that it creates, like marketing automation tools, it creates a recruitment automation where it automatically engages the applicants, and to gauge their qualifications and interest and expertise as it applies to that job. And we help actually design that nurturing process and automating that. And then we actually eliminate all of the initial steps of a manager having to reach out to the person. So the system will automatically test the applicant, engage them in sort of a secondary interview, all automatically, and then allow them to schedule their own interview as well. And we've actually been one of the biggest challenges that employers face today is people don't show up to interviews. Okay. And we have reduced no-shows by as much as 80% in the restaurant industry. This is really a game changer.
So tell us
Okay.
how, because I did steal that strategy from you. I no longer schedule interviews. I just send them a link and I'm like, go schedule it. So
Yeah,
last
exactly.
time we talked, I took that away and I'm like, there is one thing I could implement. And by the way, that's what we want the listeners, the viewers to understand is, hey, you could do this stuff yourself. You could just create a Calendly link, etc., and do it
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
And then once the operation gets big enough, then come into an application automation system. But
Right.
at the very least, if you're not doing that, start creating some sort of a calendar where you can schedule it. And then
These
again, if you're hiring for a
technologies.
large amount of if you're hiring for a large amount of individuals, then you come into a platform like ZippyApp where it does other things.
Yeah,
This was just one
yeah,
of them,
yeah.
but it was kind of interesting because I did steal that idea and it has saved me countless amount of time. So tell me how
Yes,
you
exactly.
reduced no-shows by 80%.
Okay, so the reason people don't show up to interviews is in a couple of folds. Number one is that people apply indiscriminately for positions. Click apply, 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 apply. Okay, nobody stands out. See, the thing is, nobody stands out. You know, when you're searching for a job, you're not going in there searching by name. You're searching for team member. Okay, so you click apply, apply, and you're not serious. And then if it takes a long time for somebody to get back to you, say somebody applies at say 10 o'clock at night, and the manager is busy, so it might take the manager a couple of days to get back to that candidate, even though it was a good candidate, and by then somebody else might have reached out to that candidate and they say, yeah, I'll show up, I'll come for an interview. And guess what? When did you reach out to them? You call them between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. when the lunch rush is over, right? That's the manager, when the manager is hiring, is off the, other rushes. So, and guess what that person is doing? That person is either driving or riding his bike from somewhere to somewhere. So you call him and say, hey, can you come in tomorrow at 2? Yeah, 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 sure. I'll come in at tomorrow at 2. He doesn't jot it down. He or she doesn't jot it down, So it is really a broken process. Okay. Whereas if you automate all of this, and the moment somebody submits an application, you know, they get a response from the system fairly quickly, not immediately, but fairly quickly. And then the system through AI engages with them and says, hey, tell me more about yourself. Do you have this kind of experience? Do you have this kind of availability? And we help design all of this for our clients. And then at the end of this, if you're qualified, once I understand that you're qualified, then I will say, hey, here, schedule your interview. Now, this is on the applicant's time. You didn't catch him at the wrong time. Okay. And this gets inserted into his or her calendar as well. So you're both on the same page. He or she gets notifications that you have an interview coming tomorrow. And all of this from a couple of days can be reduced to an hour, basically. So somebody can submit an application, hear from you through our platform and through text messaging, can hear from you and answer the questions that we have deemed important for this particular role, schedule their own interviews without your managers having to take a single action. Okay. And now that this interview is on the candidate's calendar, the likelihood of them, and they have spent time, because if somebody doesn't go through that process, guess what? They're not going to show up anyways. Okay. If they went through that process, exactly. If they went through that process and they are aware of their schedule, I scheduled, something with company XYZ, they will very likely to show up to an interview. Okay. And we have done many studies actually to how long an engagement it should be, what questions to ask. People immediately ask, "Do you have any felony backgrounds?" That's the worst question you can ask. You know, yeah. So it is really designing that whole process, and that's what ZippyApp does. So we actually work on reducing from the time that somebody applies to the time that they're actually scheduled and them being the right candidate. Our goal and what we have achieved is that today, when we put somebody on your calendar, you have a better than 85% chance of hiring that person, all fully automated without your managers having to do a single click. Okay, so if you really go through the entire process as we prescribe it and we have developed it, you can go from somebody applying for your jobs to being on your manager's calendars with better than 85% chance of being hired, all within half an hour or an hour without your managers having to take a single click.
Perfect. Well,
Isn't
give us
that a
a few
game
clients
changer?
that are using. That is a game changer. That, again, that's why obviously, everything that you're doing on this front, we're doing it on the guest acquisition. So when
Yeah,
we
exactly.
connected, I was like, okay, this is the other piece. And nobody wants to have two jobs in the restaurant industry. Nobody wants to work, 80 hours a week just to earn a living.
Yeah,
So if you can create a home for that individual, they're not going to look anywhere else. You create a good culture that
exactly.
they want to work in, you give them the right tools to be successful, then they'll most people will earn their way to the top. So give us a
They
few
do.
clients that are using the platform, the ZippyApp platform. So who are some of the clients that are using it?
Um, Chick-fil-A has been a partner of ours for several years, 7 years now, and Habit Burger has been using our services for many years. Dairy Queen, Wingstop, uh, Ben and Jerry's, Sonics,
So a
lot
lot of big
in
names.
and a lot of big names. And outside of the food service industry, we serve furniture stores, tire stores. It's it's the same.
Sure. Yeah. Well, hiring
Whether
process
you
is the same across all
hi-
industries. Just in the restaurant
exactly,
industry, it's a much more difficult, cumbersome process just because
exactly,
the workload is so much.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we appreciate the time that you've given us today. I hope
My
that a
pleasure.
lot of people found value on the processes, the steps. So we gave you a couple of quick action items that you could take right now. If you're a manager, if you're an owner of the restaurant, if you're trying to at least offset some of the work that the manager is doing, use the calendar information, use some of these little tricks to be able to do that. And yes, in this highly
Yeah,
competitive
absolutely.
market, you've got to stand out. You've got to ensure that you communicate, and within a couple of hours, if you can get that employee on the
Absolutely.
schedule and on a calendar, then obviously that's a much better approach than if even myself, I know I'm behind on, like, I check that once a day. So having a
Yeah,
platform like
exactly.
this would be very helpful. Awesome. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope you found this episode helpful with ZippyApp and Mr. Kamyar. We appreciate your time, and if anybody
Thank
needs to
you.
find you, we'll link it to the show notes, and you guys can contact them directly. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.